Welcome back, everyone. So today we're going on a deep dive, one that you specifically requested. We're talking about the incredible comeback story of the California Condor.
Oh, yeah.
You had mentioned you were fascinated by those conservation success stories.
Yeah, for sure.
And, well, this one is really something else. I mean, we're talking about the largest land bird in North America.
Absolutely.
Just picture it. 10-foot wingspan, striking black plumage.
Wow.
And what's really cool is head actually changes color with its mood.
You're kidding.
I know, it's pretty wild.
Yeah. Well, it's a powerful example,
It is.
of not only the bird's resilience, but,
Yeah.
the dedication of all the people involved.
Absolutely.
It's really hard to believe how close we came to losing these incredible creatures.
I know. It's
Back in the 1980s, there were fewer than 30 California condors left in the wild, yeah.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
It's crazy.
You've mentioned your interest in how humans impact ecosystems.
Right.
What were some of the key human activities that nearly drove the condor to extinction? I mean, what happened there?
Well, sadly, it was kind of a perfect storm,
Yeah.
human-caused problems. So, there was habitat destruction
Mm-hmm.
as their wild spaces were just overtaken for human use.
Right.
And hunting played a role, too,
I see.
both directly and indirectly.
Interesting.
And then there were also, the less obvious consequences of our actions.
Like what?
Well, things like lead poisoning from ammunition
Oh, wow.
and the impact of pesticides,
Right.
on the food chain. These birds are scavengers, and they were ingesting lead bullet fragments
Oh, I see.
from carcasses that hunters left behind.
Right,
And
that makes sense.
it was just devastating to their already shrinking population,
Right. Wow. So, was there any pushback to the idea of starting a captive breeding program, like from conservationists who believed in a more hands-off approach?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah. It was, the decision to capture all the remaining wild condors in 1987,
Wow.
to start that captive breeding program, it was incredibly controversial.
Yeah.
Some people argued that it was interfering too much with nature,
Right.
and others were worried about the long-term genetic diversity
Oh,
of such a small population.
yeah, that makes sense.
But the scientists involved, they knew it was a last-ditch effort.
Really, a last resort kind of thing.
Pretty much. They knew the risks,
Right.
but they felt like the potential rewards outweighed those risks.
Oh, interesting. So zoos like the San Diego Zoo, Safari Park, and the Los Angeles Zoo really became crucial havens
They did.
for the species at that point.
Yeah.
They even pioneered techniques like puppet rearing, which I've heard about, but it sounds so fascinating.
Uh-huh.
How did that work?
Well, puppet rearing was super important to prevent the chicks from imprinting on humans,
Oh, right.
which would have made it much harder to release them back into the wild. Basically, the handlers used hand puppets
Oh, wow.
that looked like adult condors to feed and care for the baby chicks.
Oh, so they could.
So they
Yeah.
could mimic, natural interactions and make sure the chicks developed the behaviors they needed to survive in their natural habitat.
Oh, wow.
It was a pretty innovative approach.
Yeah, it really was. Now, rewilding captive-bred animals, I imagine, comes with its own set of challenges.
It does.
So what were some of the unexpected hurdles the scientists encountered when they started reintroducing the condors back in the early 1990s?
Well, the reintroduction was a very meticulous process.
I bet.
Suitable habitats had to be selected carefully,
Yeah.
taking into account everything from food sources to potential threats.
Okay.
And the team also had to consider the condor's natural range, which, historically spanned a pretty huge area.
Oh, wow.
From California to Florida and even into Mexico.
Wow, that's a pretty wide range.
Oh, right. So they ended up choosing locations in California, Arizona, and Baja California,
Okay.
where the birds could be monitored closely.
So even with all these efforts, the lead poisoning issue didn't just vanish, did it?
No, it didn't.
I'm curious about the policy debates surrounding lead ammunition bans.
Right.
What has that been like?
Unfortunately, lead poisoning continues to be a serious threat,
Really?
even with, the success of the captive breeding and reintroduction programs.
They're still ingesting lead.
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
Condors are very vulnerable to lead poisoning,
Uh,
and even small amounts can be fatal.
wow.
And it can cause long-term damage to their nervous and reproductive systems.
Oh, that's terrible.
There's been a big push to educate hunters about this problem
Uh-huh.
and encourage the use of non-lead ammunition.
Makes sense. But is that working?
It's,
Yeah.
it's had mixed results. There's been
Yeah.
some pushback from certain hunting groups.
Right.
It's a complex issue
Yeah.
with no easy answers. But, every step toward reducing lead contamination helps.
Yeah. I guess every little bit counts.
Yeah.
So where do things stand now with the California condor population? What's the current status?
Well, as of 2025,
Okay.
there are over 500 California condors,
Wow. 500.
more than half of them living in the wild.
That's amazing.
It's a pretty remarkable achievement.
It is.
And it really shows how dedicated everyone involved has been.
Right.
But the species is still classified as critically endangered by
Right.
the International Union for Conservation of Nature.
So even with 500.
Yeah. It
Well,
it means they still face a very high risk of extinction in the wild.
that's wild.
So, we can celebrate the progress,
Yeah.
but also important to remember their future is it's still uncertain.
Right. So it's kind of a
Yeah.
cautious celebration.
Exactly.
No. Okay. Aside from lead poisoning, what are some of the other major challenges facing condors today?
Well, habitat encroachment is a growing concern. Okay, so as
As human populations grow
Mhm.
and development spreads into condor territory,
Oh, I see. They're kind of losing their space.
they are, yeah.
Okay.
And power line collisions are another risk.
Really?
Yeah. And wind turbines, too.
Hmm.
They pose a similar danger.
Okay.
And then, of course, there's climate change,
Right, of course.
which presents all sorts of challenges
Yeah.
to their food sources
Yeah.
and nesting sites.
It's amazing how this one bird's fate is so intertwined
It is.
with our actions.
Yeah.
And you mentioned before that the condor holds a really special place in Native American cultures.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us about the cultural connections to this animal?
Right. For many tribes,
Yeah.
particularly in California and the Southwest,
Mm-hmm.
the condor is much more than just a bird.
What do you mean?
Well, it holds a sacred status.
Oh, wow.
It symbolizes life, death, and renewal.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is.
Yeah.
It's often seen as a messenger
Oh, wow.
between the earthly and spiritual realms,
I see.
and its feathers are used in ceremonies
wow.
and regalia.
Yeah.
So protecting the condor, it's not just about conservation.
Right.
It's about preserving the cultural heritage of these communities
Uh-huh.
and respecting their deep connection to the natural world.
Yeah, so it's a much bigger
It is.
than just the bird itself.
Much bigger, yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. So what does this all mean? What's the key takeaway
Right?
from the California condor's journey? I mean, what can we learn from this?
Well, I think it shows us that even when things seem really dire,
Yeah.
we can make a difference.
Right.
The condors come back. It's a testament to the power of human intervention,
It is.
to the importance of collaboration
Yeah.
between scientists, conservationists, governments, local communities.
It's a group effort.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
It demonstrates the will to prevent extinction.
Yeah.
And it gives us hope
Right.
that we can turn the tide for other endangered species, too.
Yeah.
I find that so inspiring.
Yeah.
It's a true testament
Yeah.
to what's possible when people come together
Absolutely.
for a shared goal.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what other conservation efforts could learn
Right.
from the condor story.
Exactly. And, if this deep dive has sparked your interest, I encourage you to learn more
Yeah.
about the ongoing efforts to protect these amazing birds.
Yeah.
Every individual can contribute to their survival,
Absolutely.
whether it's supporting conservation organizations,
Right.
advocating for responsible land management,
Uh-huh.
or simply learning more about the challenges they face.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today.
My pleasure.
It's clear that a world without California condors would be a much less vibrant place.
It would.
And their story really does give us hope that we can make a difference.
Absolutely.
Thanks again.
You're welcome.